FanDuel, I love you. I do. I love you. But 4.5 wins? What, you out of your freaking mind?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants, Country, and NFL 33. FanDuel? I need a moment here. Because what the hell is this? So, FanDuel put out their win totals for college football, and they have the Florida Gators at 4.5 wins. And so if you don't gamble, or if you're not familiar, or if you're not a complete degenerate like myself, lines are set at 4.5, because then if you think Florida will win 4 or less games, you bet under. If you think they'll win 5 or more games, you bet over. That's why they tend to avoid the even lines, right? Okay. So FanDuel thinks that the Florida Gators will win 4.5 games, so 4 or 5 games this year. And before we talk about why they're wrong, I do want to talk about why they have it set at 4.5. Because I don't understand the logic, because I think that it's wildly inaccurate. Or not even wildly inaccurate. I just think it's a bad decision. I hammered it before. I'm letting you know that I hammered that over before I even recorded this. Florida Gators went 5-7 last year. Right, everyone knows that. It was a rough go of things for the Florida Gators. 5-7 last year, and I've said it before, and I will say it again. As far as national media, national perception, whatever you want to call it, as far as a national scale is concerned, Florida's a dumpster fire. To make it clear, internally, it's not a dumpster fire. And overall, it's not a dumpster fire. I've said it a million times at this point. Internally, the Florida Gators are rock solid. Like they're set. Like they're ready to go to war. They're good to go. The culture is good. They're ready to win games. Like internally, this is not nearly as bad as national media perceives it to be. Because you look at ESPN, you look at On3, you look at 24/7, you look at Bleacher Report, you look anywhere. And if it's a not Florida based, not Florida specific, and by Florida specific, I mean the University of specific media or brand or personality, whatever you want to call them, they're way down on Florida. For the huge, overwhelming majority, they're way down on Florida. Because nationally, what you hear about Florida are not good things, right? You hear, oh, the team went 5-7 despite being, 5-2 heading into those last 5 games. Easy, like you should have been bowl eligible. You had a game against 2-7 at the time. Arkansas, you should have been bowl eligible. Then they weren't. Things like that. Season ends. Trevor Etienne hits a transfer portal. Prince Emmanuel hits a transfer portal. And again, I don't care how you feel about them. I don't care how I feel about them. The fact is they are nationally recognizable names that transferred out of the University of Florida. One of those names could have gone to the NFL draft and instead transferred out of the University of Florida to go to another SEC school, and Trevor Etienne went to your biggest rival. Okay? You look at the recruiting class. Amaris Williams, who we knew for weeks, maybe even months if you want to stretch that, was not going to be a part of this Florida Gators recruiting class. We knew Jamonte Waller bounced. There was, I guess, I guess you could say there were like people scared that LJ McCray would be leaving too, although I really that was never a true concern for me. But you look at all that nationally, that's what you see Florida as. Okay? Again, nationally. I'm not saying that's what Florida is. That's what the national media public perception is of Florida. That they say, hey, you had 5 wins, good spot to make a bowl game. You crumbled, you folded, whatever you want to call it. You fell. You ended the season on a 5-game losing streak. Okay, and then you lost a talented running back, a star running back, whatever you want to call him. You lost a talented leading edge rusher for your team. 2 SEC schools. Okay, then you lost one of your highest ranked recruits went to an SEC school in I think it was mid-November that Jamonta Waller flipped. Then you get to signing day, early signing period, and that week you lose another player, star, on that defensive line to that same SEC school with Auburn taking Jamonta Waller and Amaris Williams. So you look at the national perception, and that's what you see. You don't see everything that we see when we cover the team locally or when we just focus on the team locally. You don't know about the locker room presence, the culture being built in Gainesville. Nationally, you think it's a dumpster fire. FanDuel is falling for that. Also, you look at Florida having one of the hardest college football schedules we've ever seen. Ever. You can argue it is the toughest schedule ever. You see a team that went 5-7, lost maybe their 2 most recognizable names on the team in Trevor Etienne and Prince Umanmielen, lost their leading receiver to the NFL, a first round pick. They lost a first round pick at receiver. That's it. Like they lost a first round pick at receiver. They lost a star running back. They lost a star edge rusher. They lost a lot, right? Things suck like that. You see that they lost all 3 of their going into the season starting offensive interior linemen. Kingsley, of course, got hurt right before the season, tried to come back at multiple points, never really worked out. But the interior offensive line, they're basically replacing entirely. Corners were not good last year, production-wise especially. And then they go into this gauntlet of a schedule in 2024. And so that's where FanDuel, I think, comes in and goes, all that adds up to maybe 4 or 5 wins. We're going to set the line at 4.5. Now, we've gone through what I believe FanDuel's reasoning is for this. I don't know who specifically makes. I'm sure they've got algorithms and their analytics and whatever it is. But now that we've gone through that, I get to tell you why they are wrong. Okay? I'm going to say they're wrong. Said it the first 10 seconds of the show. I said, I love you, but what the hell are you out of your freaking mind? Okay? I'm going to keep that going. But first, we are going to get a quick word from LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. FanDuel, if you're looking for new odds makers, just saying. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. Okay? LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. If that sounds like you, where you're like, yeah, I'm not looking for work, but like if work finds me, I'm here for it. You can go into your settings, put that you're open to work, and put it so that only recruiters externally can see that. So you don't have to broadcast it to everybody. You can broadcast it to everybody, but you don't have to broadcast it to everybody. You don't got to worry about a coworker or anybody from HR or your boss seeing it and be like, interesting. Just saying, you can do it. It's a great spot to do it. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And now comes time for the part that we have to talk about why FanDuel was wrong. Simple as there's no other way to put it. FanDuel, I love you. Again, I love FanDuel, use it every day. Xander Bogaerts getting hurt screwed my parlay yesterday. But I will say you are wrong here. And that's what you do with people you love, right? You tell them when they're wrong. You let them know when they're wrong. You keep them in check. And FanDuel, you're wrong. So looking at the Florida Gators, we're going to start by looking at the schedule. We'll talk about the roster and coaching changes later. But we're going to look at the schedule first because I think it's important to acknowledge that in college football, there's maybe the biggest home court advantage you can find, except for maybe college basketball. In terms of when a team comes to the Swamp, I think every single Gators fan goes, okay, we should win that game. A team's coming to the Swamp, the Florida Gators should win that game, without a doubt in my mind. I think the overwhelming majority of Gators fans think that and feel that. I do. When a team's coming to the Swamp, I'm like, Florida should win this game. That's one of the huge reasons that I bet Florida to beat Utah. It's one of the big reasons that I picked Florida to beat Utah when Utah came to Gainesville, was I don't expect you to come into the Swamp and win a football game. I've said forever, and I will continue to say, the Swamp is a top 2 atmosphere in college football. I think it's number 1, but I will give you, if you want to have a debate about, or if you want to have an argument about Florida and LSU at night, I'm fine with that. Those are 1A, 1B to me. Florida's 1A. So I think anytime a team comes into the Swamp, I go, okay, Florida should win that game. It's as simple as that. I don't care if they're the worst team. You should win that game. They were worse than Utah in 2022, but they had home field advantage. They did their jobs, and the crowd did their jobs. And I think when you look at college games, they're rowdy crowds. They're more rambunctious than in the NFL. And also you got to consider those are kids in college. They're young adults in college sports playing in front of 90,000 people booing you if you're going on the road, or 90,000 people cheering you if you're doing something good for your team. That atmosphere is built different. And again, the only sport where I think it's as impactful or maybe more impactful is college basketball. Okay? Pro sports, I don't think that the crowd is as game-changing. I feel like in pro sports, the crowds kind of change with the game. But in college, the home team, unless you're getting completely run out the gym, I feel like in college, the home crowd can change the game entirely. So Florida, you have 6 home games this year. 6, right? Right, 6. It's Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, UCF, Kentucky. Then you have LSU and Ole Miss. So 7. But I was excluding Samford because I was like, you know what? Samford, not really a game that I'm talking about having the home field advantage. But 7 home games this year. 7 if you're the Florida Gators. Okay. 7 of the 11 Power 4 games, because again, Florida has 11 Power 4 games, and Samford, which is FCS, 7 of the 11 Power 4 games are against quarterbacks that are going into their first year as a starter. The only teams returning their starting quarterback, Texas A&M, who's even then he hasn't been healthy. Then you have Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss. Just being completely honest, putting it out there. Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss, those are the main reasons that I expect that game to be a loss. At this point in time, I think that Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss are probably losses. I think the Ole Miss game is the game that you're most likely to lose in Gainesville. Ole Miss, they went out and got a ton of talent in the portal. They have a returning quarterback. They've got a lot of returning players as well. They're probably going to be pretty damn good this year. I think that's fine. Okay? 7 of the 11, though, Power 4 games are against quarterbacks going into their first year as a starter at that university. That's a big advantage, especially early in the season. Like Cam Ward's, I think, a very good quarterback. He's going to be making his first start for Miami in the swamp. That's not favorable for you, okay? So I want to get that out there. 7 home games. 7 of the 11 Power 4 games are against quarterbacks going into their first year as a starter. There are 2 games, because I don't like to do the guarantee thing. Obviously, nothing is ever really a guarantee. But there's 2 games that I look at and I go, gimmies. And it's Samford and Mississippi State. There's more games that I think Florida should win. I think Florida should beat Miami, should beat Texas A&M, should beat UCF, should beat Kentucky. Tennessee, maybe, because Neyland is another one of those spots where they change the game, but should beat those teams, right? And there's a couple games that are kind of toss-ups. I'll look at Tennessee as a toss-up. I'll look at the LSU game as a toss-up. It depends on how Garrett Nussmeier. And for Tennessee, it depends on how Nico is performing. But for the most part, like 4.5 is a wildly low win total. Because you look at, again, you defend your home turf. You defend your home turf, you win 4 of those 7, we'll say. And that's conservative. I think Florida has a legitimate possibility to win all 7. Again, a legitimate possibility. Because even though I think Florida loses to Ole Miss, I don't think it's a game like I look at the Georgia game and I go, man, it's going to be tough for Florida to win that one at all. I don't think about that when I think the Ole Miss game. I think, it's going to be tough to beat them, but it's way more doable. So for Florida, you look at the home games: Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, UCF, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss. You win 4 of those. 4. And then you've got Mississippi State on the road. There's your 5th. I don't want to be cocky or anything. I don't feel like I'm being cocky. Let me know if you think I'm being obnoxious with this. But I feel like 4.5 is really low. And I think I'm one of the more reasonable or realistic, whatever you want to say, Florida Gators fans out there. I don't go, oh, we got Elijah Badger, 9 wins. I don't do that. It went up to 7 for me. That's what that's what I think you should do. 7. 6, 7 range. That's what I think you should be. I used to be 5 to 6, adding Elijah Badger, 6 to 7. I think that's reasonable. So 4.5. I don't get it, FanDuel. I don't get, and on Dinger Tuesday too. What is wrong with you? It just doesn't make sense. And FanDuel knows I love them, but I don't get it. 4.5. That is bat you know what crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. So I can't say worse things here, but just know I want to say worse things here. Like that's where I'm at with it. I think that's absolutely nutso. We are about to talk about the roster and coaches and how that's going to play into Florida. Again, I think winning more than 4 games, that's just wild to me. But first, we're going to get a quick word from Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? Like, pinch me. I must be dreaming, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Okay? Just saying. It's a beautiful thing, right? Like, especially when you're talking about your financial future, like you're like, oh yeah, I've saved, I've researched, I've invested all that I can. Now you get to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses in Yahoo Finance. It's a beautiful thing. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including, but not limited to, breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, which I don't have to go on about the customizable charts, right? I can see me, okay? I can see me. I hear the things I say. I know I'm a nerd. I don't need to go on about the customizable charts, but just know that's the stuff that gets me jazzed there. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, Yahoo Finance, the #1 financial destination. That's yahoofinance.com, yahoofinance.com. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast. To wrap up today's show, I spent time berating FanDuel. I spent time telling you why the schedule, I think, while it is an incredibly tough schedule, why it's not a schedule where I go, yeah, 4 wins. Come on now. But now it's time to look at the roster and the coaches, right? First off, the Florida Gators have a huge advantage over most teams in the country right now, right? Maybe over most countries. I don't know. I don't know what the international landscape looks like. But for Florida, they've got Graham Mertz coming back for year 2. And year 2 for a starting quarterback is typically when you see a pretty big jump, especially out of the transfer portal, especially coming over and like being a starter elsewhere, coming over, starting here, and then having a second year starting. You typically see a pretty big jump. Okay? For Florida, I know that I think I'm the kind of guy where I go, hey, Graham, I think is somewhat limited, but I think he's capable of winning you games. I think he's still a very good college quarterback. That's what you need, right? Like, that's what we're looking for. Also, roster-wise, just on a grand scheme, one of the highest returning production percentages in the country, which I know usually we get the conversation when we bring that up of, well, was it really good production last year that you're returning? Because not all production is created equal. If you go, hey, we're returning our starting right tackle from last year, the Florida Gators, that was Damian George. If you go, yeah, he's our starting right tackle this year, we have the same starting right tackle back to back, you'd be furious, right? I get it. He's starting at right guard, most likely, but starting at right tackle last year was terrible. If he's starting back at right tackle again this year, you wouldn't be happy about it, right? So not all returning production is created equal. Not all returning players are created equal. So when you ask, well, was it good production that's returning from last year? To which I say, no, not all of it was good. Some of it was very damn good. Want to throw that one out there. Graham Mertz had a great year. Montreal Johnson coming back with a lot of production. Trey Wilson coming back with a lot of production. Okay? Arliss and Hayden didn't really produce a ton, but do tight ends ever in college really? That's very rare. So you've got some production returning that's pretty damn good. However, the Florida Gators also last year were one of the youngest teams in college football, which is also an easy indicator to go, hey, they were one of the youngest teams in college football. It makes sense that they have a lot of returning production last year. Because when you say youngest team, you don't mean, oh, yeah, they've got the most young guys on the team. No, you mean that they're playing the youngest players, that they're playing a lot of young players. So for the Florida Gators, they were one of the youngest teams in college football last year. They are returning, or one of the highest returning production percentages in the country right now. Okay? So, yeah, not all of the production that's coming back was good production, but most of the production that's coming back that wasn't good production is young production. And remember, like I feel like I'm constantly saying this, and I know it's probably a bit annoying, but I'm someone who I like to set what I think are reasonable expectations so that when those expectations don't hit, I get to be really freaking mad about them. Like that's why when you see my expectations, that's what I'm setting. I'm setting what I think are realistic expectations. And if you hit those expectations, great. If you don't, I'm going to be really pissed because I think they were realistic expectations. And when you look at the young talent coming back, it's important to remember some guys will improve at rates way quicker than you expected them to. They'll take big jumps in their development. Some guys won't. Some guys get worse. Some guys just go, all right, I contributed as a freshman. I'm going to have my job back next year. I don't need to work that hard. And then they lose it. And then they get mad that they lost their job. And then they leave, right? Or if they continue to try to work, maybe they get back. Some guys will develop at the rate that's realistically expected. That is what it is. And you can not predict, but there are some players that you look at, because there's a lot of variance here and there's a lot of variables. And there's some guys that you look at and you go, hey, well, he should make a jump. Like Jakeem Jackson is someone that should realistically make a pretty decent jump either this year or next year because he's still learning how to play corner. When you look at guys who are learning how to play a position, typically you look at that second, third year and you go, all right, you should make a jump here. That should be it. Like you're learning, now you're comfortable and you've learned and you should make a big jump there. So there's guys like that where you can kind of look to. There's some guys where you go, yeah, like he can technically develop, but he's way too light to be, I don't know, a defensive tackle for us right now. And that's just something that takes a long time to gain that weight cleanly. So if you can get, again, as long as really half or even more than, like slightly more than half of those guys are developing quicker than expected or as expected, you're cooking with gas. Especially when you have as many young players as possible, as many premium positions as Florida has. If you can get those next steps, you're cooking. Coaching staff. Russ Callaway as co-offensive coordinator, taking on more responsibilities, hopefully making things easier for Billy Napier. Dan Enos coming in as an assistant, and I was as an analyst. I will say this. I know that when Dan Enos got hired, a lot of Florida Gators fans were pissed. If you watch Locked On Gators for, I think, the day after Dan Enos got hired, I was not pissed. In fact, I was like, hey, you're bringing in a guy that was an SEC offensive coordinator, and you're bringing him in as an analyst. This is extra credit here. And that's how I still look at Dan Enos. That's how I will continue to look at Dan Enos. That's how I look at Eric Esau, too, formerly Auburn's offensive coordinator when they had Brian Harsin there. That's how I look at him as well. So that's extra credit. Then, defensively, you brought in Gerald Chapman to coach your defensive line. You brought in Will Harris to coach your secondary. Both are doing pretty damn good jobs right now. And you brought in Ron Roberts as your supreme leader of the defense, or whatever title they gave him. You brought in Ron Roberts to do that. So you made needed changes. You also brought in Jonathan DeCoster to work with your offensive line after Darnell Stapleton went to the Washington Commanders. But you've made the changes that you've needed to make. You've made significant changes. I know a lot of people are pissed if Russ Callaway doesn't call plays. I'm not going to be that mad about it as long as the offense works. I don't give a damn who's calling the plays if the offense works. Okay? It's truly as simple as that. So Russ Callaway might not be calling plays, but he'll contribute to the game plan, and that's important. Okay? He'll contribute to offensive adjustments, and that's important. Defensively, Ron Roberts isn't going to call plays, but he's going to contribute to the game plan. He's going to contribute to in-game adjustments. He's going to contribute to situational football. He's going to contribute to improving this team. And I think that these things are things that the national media doesn't tend to cover. Because they don't want to talk about, well, Florida promoted their tight ends coach to co-offensive coordinator, and he had play calling experience at Stanford. That's not sexy stuff, but he's not going to call plays here. That's not a sexy storyline, right? It's just not. So national media doesn't cover that. It goes back to why national media doesn't cover these things the way that they do, why they cover the negative stories. Also, they do it, frankly, just because they know that national media, if I'm a national media reporter and I write, hey, Billy Napier's on the hot seat, he's going to get fired by week 6. You're going to respond to that, right? Miami fans are going to troll. Florida State fans are going to troll. Georgia fans are going to troll. Florida fans are going to be in your mentions being pissed and getting the engagement from it. It happens every time. Big game boomer. He's publicly, openly said before, like, yeah, I put Florida low on things because it gets me the engagement. Like, it pisses their fans off. Like, you're a Florida Gators fan, you support the university that people love to hate. And that's one of the things that I love about the University of Florida. That's a fun thing. Florida, 4.5 wins. That's what I need. Thank you for making. I'll preemptively thank you for making me some money this year. I'm just saying. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. And I'll see you all next time.